One thing about Watergate, it was going to change the culture of Washington. It did no such thing. You know, of course, this kind of thing is going to happen again. And it's going to happen in a much, much bigger scale.
Whether you talk about FDR, or whether you talk about Nixon, or whether you talk about Kennedy, or whether you talk about Clinton, we have presidents that seem to be in politics for the right reason, but presidents that also have a fatal flaw.
I would like to add a personal word with regard to an issue that has been of great concern to all Americans over the past year. I refer, of course, to the investigations of the so-called Watergate affair. I believe the time has come to bring that investigation and the other investigations of this matter to an end. 1 year of Watergate is enough.
But as hard as Nixon tried, Watergate would not go away.
The meeting will come to order. Resolved that the Committee on the Judiciary is authorized and directed to investigate fully and completely whether sufficient grounds exist to impeach Richard M. Nixon, President of the United States of America.
It took the American people to force Congress into action. This was not like what happened with President Clinton, where a special prosecutor said you should do an impeachment. There were those of us in Congress who wanted to take action, but the powers that be refused. It was only when the American people broke down that wall of resistance and said, you've got to do what you can do under the Constitution to rein in the imperial president.
Woodward and Bernstein ushered in a new era of journalism that opened up the White House in a way that would have made LBJ and JFK and FDR very uncomfortable.
Marcus, everyone asks the question, could the Post do a story like Watergate or do Watergate now? What's your...
You know, in today's world, that story would catch fire much faster. The minute the break-in occurred, you would tweet it. Both sides would seize on it. It's an election campaign. It would be, they would be using it immediately as fodder for both sides in the battle. Everybody would chase. I mean, there would be bloggers, and as a result, it would be much harder to do what you did, probably, because they would clamp down much faster.
It's a great question how Watergate might unfold in the current news environment. You could look at the sort of glass half full argument and say, my goodness, with all these people on Twitter and all these reporters, in the 24-hour news cycle, that if a big story began to emerge, it would never be two lonely guys pursuing it forever, because, the entire pack of the cyber universe would, bay like wolves after the White House until it happened.
They used to say a reporter was only good as his phone numbers. We can hunt and stalk sources so many different ways. The toolbox that I have available to me as a reporter, digital voice, recording, email, social media. We can truth tell them in real time. When they say something, we can be Googling what they're saying, playing back to them. We have access to all known thought, one click away. Ability to surround and ferret out source in a way that Woodward and Bernstein only dreamed of.
The internet is a tool, just like a typewriter is a tool, telephone is a tool. At the end of the day, journalism requires incredibly dogged persistence on the part of journalists who are seeking the truth.
So you don't think he should recuse himself?
Look, there's nothing to recuse himself. He was 100% straight with the committee.
Since I had involvement with the campaign, I should not be involved in any campaign investigation.
He made a statement that was 100% accurate, and he stands by that.
In retrospect, if I should have slowed down and said, but I did meet one Russian official a couple of times, that would be the ambassador.
So, clearly Sean Spicer was wrong. He was just plain wrong. He said something that wasn't correct.
But David, there's a bigger problem here. Why doesn't the White House know what's going on?
Right. We should make clear to the audience, right? Those sound bites that you just played, they're from the same day.
Right.
That was Sean Spicer today, Attorney General.
It was Sean Spicer in the morning, and the Attorney General a few hours later.
But you knew that, but Kellyanne, the White House knew that almost 3 weeks ago. They knew that after the Justice Department told the White House counsel, Don McGahn, almost 3 weeks ago, that General Flynn had not told the truth about those phone calls and was vulnerable to Russian blackmail.
Well, these are what are in printed reports, but the fact is that I can't reveal what the White House knew or didn't know and who in the White House knew or didn't know.
By the beginning of 1973, Congress could no longer ignore the scandal. Their investigation would boil down to one simple question.
What did the president know, and when did he know it?
The Senate tonight voted 77-0 to establish a select committee to investigate the Watergate bugging case. The committee will be headed by North Carolina.
Barely 8 months after Woodward and Bernstein published their first article, the Senate created a select committee to investigate the Watergate scandal.
Tonight, I would like to give my answer to those who have suggested that I resign. I have no intention whatever of walking away from the job I was elected to do.
After 4 months of legal squabbling, the presidential tape recordings were finally delivered today to Chief Judge John Sirica. We won't hear them, however, until all the discrepancies have been accounted for, and today that situation grew worse, not better.
Much worse. Nixon had handed over the tapes, but there was a catch.
I was in the White House, things were fairly quiet, and I got a call to go to Ron Ziegler's office. And that's when we learned about the gap in the tapes. We had been told just about 3 days earlier that the worst is behind us, and suddenly there was an 18.5-minute gap in the tapes, and all hell broke loose again.
The conversation in question took place just 3 days after the Watergate burglars were caught, and the Watergate prosecutor thought it was important.
We know that the 18.5-minute gap was a conversation about Watergate because it was with Haldeman and the president, and Haldeman was a meticulous note-taker, and he took notes.
The president's personal secretary, Rosemary Woods, was recalled to explain how she accidentally erased 18 minutes of an H.R. Haldeman conversation with the president 3 days after the Watergate break-in.
It didn't happen by accident, would have been our first suspicion. I was the lawyer who questioned Rosemary Woods about the 18.5-minute gap.
Are you discussing testimony tomorrow or another reenactment bringing in her death?
I don't want to comment on it. She described that she had pushed the wrong button. Instead of pushing stop, she had pushed record. She also had to keep her foot on the pedal.
Ms. Woods used the machine to show how it happened.
So when I asked her to demonstrate, she pushed the button, kept her foot on, and she supposedly reached back about 6 feet to get the telephone. Her foot came off the pedal just with the mere movement, and there was just no way it was believable.
The White House contention that the talk between the president and Haldeman was accidentally erased will give more ammunition to the president's critics.
To hear something that was so obviously untrue, it changed a lot of the American public's view of the whole situation.
Rosemary Woods would stand by her story. 3 days after the Supreme Court ruling, the House of Representatives took the step most dreaded by the president: impeachment. Nixon's fate now rested in the hands of the committee.
Today I am an inquisitor, and hyperbole would not be fictional and would not overstate the solemnness that I feel right now. My faith in the Constitution is whole, it is complete, it is total. And I am not going to sit here and be an idle spectator to the diminution, the subversion, the destruction of the Constitution.
Mr. Hungate. Mr. Conyers. Aye.
Some Republicans who voted for the impeachment, some Democrats who voted for impeachment, they were putting their political lives on the line. And all of us were putting our reputations on the line.
Ms. Holtzman.
We voted on the impeachment. It was one of the most sober and solemn moments in my life, and I think in the life of everybody on that committee. Everybody understood the stakes for the country. That's what this was all about. And it was above party.
Mr. Smith.
It was what was good for America and what our democracy required.
Mr. Railsback.
It was Republicans, finally, who made sure that Nixon had to leave office. Barry Goldwater marching down to the White House.